Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our first garden edition of Virtual Home Tours. I am Chantel Drake, and I'm here to welcome you and to thank you for your continued support of the Dixon. As members, you have contributed to the ongoing programs in the gardens and museum, and we can't thank you enough for your generosity over the past year. If you are tuning in and aren't a member, please visit dixon.org/members to learn more about events like this one and many other benefits of joining the Dixon. In just a moment, Del Skaggs, Director of Horticulture, and Ann and Steve Reynolds, considerate and dedicated supporters of the Dixon, will guide you through a virtual tour of the Reynolds home garden. Immediately following the tour, Dale will lead a Q&A with Steve and Ann to answer all of your questions. So you don't have to wait until the tour is over to drop your questions in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Submit questions or comments during the tour or plug them in as the conversation is underway. Before we start the tour, I want to say a very special thank you to Ann and Steve for allowing us a peek into their outdoor space. There is a lot to see and a lot to learn, so sit back and enjoy the Reynolds Home Tour Garden Edition.
Hello everybody, Dale Skaggs here. We are on another Dixon home tour, and this is the first garden edition, and we're at the home of Steve and Ann Reynolds. And let's see if we can get them out to have a tour of the garden, okay? Hello, Steve.
Hey, Dale.
Hey.
Welcome.
See your garden.
Great.
We'd love to. We picked a beautiful day. Mike Kaiser from Nashville was the original landscape architect. He did a lot of the hardscape and some of the landscape,
Yes.
but then you have come in and helped really put the finishing touches on it, and we are grateful.
Well, Steve is the real gardener here, and he
Actually,
deserves a lot more credit.
I'm actually the guy who pulls weeds. Ann is embarrassed when we go to church. As a matter of fact, she says, "Can't you wash your hands before we go to church?" She gave me for Father's Day a fingernail brush. But I do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. And Ann's a big helper too. She's my leaf picker upper. Yeah.
I'm his cheerleader.
That's right.
But anyway, you just love the garden. I
Yep.
mean, you're out here every day and pruning and weeding and taking care of things. And
Absolutely. We have good help too with Armando Garcia, who comes and helps and does the heavy lifting, and I just do the finishing part. But let's walk up to the middle garden. These are Ann's roses that were in the backyard. She said, "Why don't we put these in the front yard?" And they have really done a beautiful job of flowering.
little fairy rose, and yeah, it's this is totally Ann's design.
Dale helps me by giving me tags, and this is called Penstemon Blackbeard.
That's Blackbeard. Okay, there's two of them. There's Dark Towers and Blackbeard, and this is Blackbeard.
And this will attract bumblebees, butterflies, and they're just spectacular. And this is Ann's pathway. She loves to have a pathway to walk through the garden instead of just standing on the street looking in. It was really a marsh area, and most of the plants were dying. We lost at least 4 trees in here, and so your concept was to bring in plants that could tolerate wet feet.
Right.
And that's what we have done. And then the second issue that we've been dealing with, which is appropriate for this part of the world and particularly in this neighborhood, is the deer. Loved a lot of the shrubs, and they would come in and eat it. And so we've tried to plant things that the deer don't like. Unfortunately, they still like monkey grass, or you would call it liriope.
Yeah, pretty cool plant.
And then we have the lavender, which we really fell in love with when we visited France the first time in Provence. And this particular crop has come back.
Yeah.
It survived the 0-degree temperatures, which
You know,
is really
you
interesting.
talked about I don't think the cold is the issue. I think the drainage. And you know, this was poorly drained, but we've successfully found where it's happy. Anyway, it's really nice. It's starting to candle up, and you know, these are really good. Ann could take these and make little bundles of them and give them
Oh,
to the
yeah.
grandkids and stuff, almost like a little sachet or something.
And you call it candling up?
Well, it's
Because
just
it looks like
budding up,
it, well, I know, but I've never thought of it that way, but that's a great description. And these white tall flowers,
Yeah, there's champion is the name of the common name for the flower,
uh-huh,
and this one's called Angel's Blush, which is a relatively new cultivar. And if you notice, the flowers as they age, they turn into this pinky
yeah,
blush
right
color.
here. Mm.
And this is Angel's Blush. Most people are familiar with this plant as a magenta. And you know, in gardening, it's kind of the much maligned magenta. People have trouble using that color. So this is a real breakthrough in the fact that you've got this wonderful gray foliage, and then you have these white blossoms that fade to pink. Last year you had just the basil.
Yeah, it just was a clump.
Yeah, it's not quite as nice as lamb's ear, but it has that blue-gray color, plays well with the lavender. And speaking of lamb's ear, this plant is related to lamb's ear. This is
These.
Stakey's Homelo.
Is it really?
Yeah, and
It's related to lamb's ear, but see, these even feel like lamb's ear.
yeah,
The leaves.
and that's not even related. But you know, but anyway, this is in the same Stakey's, and this is Homelo, which is there's a Dutchman named Piet Odolf who designed the High Line, and this is one of his introduction. I've actually visited his farm in the Netherlands.
The corner is anchored by this Alaskan cedar.
Weeping Alaskan cedar.
Weeping Alaskan cedar. And there are a few of these in Memphis, but it has been a lovely tree.
Yeah, I love the way the branches are pendulous, and I think it's native to the Puget Sound, so it's a far cry from Memphis. But if you give it good drainage, because it grows in wet conditions in the Puget Sound, it can take our heavy clay soils because it's used to a lot of soil moisture, certainly at least seasonally. And the blue-green foliage is fantastic, and anything with Alaskan in the name, most people steer away from here, but this has been a pretty good one. This is Itea. This is Little Henry Itea, and it's called Virginia Sweetspire. And Steve, canoeing over on the Ghost section of the Wolf River, there are tons of these growing
Really?
native, so it's
Oh,
a
my.
native plant. And also, speaking of natives, you know, everybody's into natives these days. This is the possum haw, our native deciduous holly, which has the red berries in the fall. So there's a lot of natives going on right here. Which,
And you know what comes with a possum haw?
what comes with the possum haw?
The cedar waxwings will
Oh, they-
come in by the hundreds and consume all the red berries. And we have 1, 2, 3, like 9 possum haws.
So I think this year was a great year for Edgeworthia. Edgeworthia is a plant that the Dixon kind of introduced Memphis to, and this is a nice specimen. Did you have good blooms on it this year?
We did. We actually have some remnants
Oh, I see. Yeah.
now that I probably need to go around and pluck off. But yes, it was loaded with blooms, and this is blooming when the snow's on the ground. And then of course it's next to the Dixon foam flowers, which is
Yeah.
our namesake plant,
That
and
is
they
a-
are beautiful.
That is a great grower and just a really good plant. Look how glossy the foliage is on that. You want to speak to this, Steve?
This is creeping fig, which usually is very hardy. Of course, when you hit 0-degree temperature, it took its toll this year, but you can see it's still finding a way.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Dale has taught me to do is after the leaves die, he said, put on gloves, come out here and sweep it and get all the dead off, which is what I do, and it just about covers the whole walkway with leaves. But then you get to see the beautiful results. And I would say probably in another month, it'll probably be all greened up. You remember when you, Ann, and I, and a group of others, Barbara Williamson and a number of other people were walking through the gardens in Paris during the Ferran exhibit.
That
We
was a
asked
really
you,
special trip for me. Yeah.
what year was that? Was that 2012, I think?
Yeah. I don't exactly remember. Maybe. Yeah, 2012 sounds about right. Yeah.
But we were walking through these beautiful gardens in downtown Paris, and I asked, what are those trees? and you said those are hornbeams. Of course, they were much, much bigger than these, and it's called an LA.
Yeah, in LA.
And we thought this was one of the additions that we put in with your help to really make an accent toward our back gardens, and it has really turned out beautifully. And then we come down from the camellias to the peonies,
Yeah,
which this is our first time.
Yeah, the peonies are the summer flower, and we're going to take this hedge down just a little bit so they'll show off. But last year, it was I think it was during the pandemic, we had lots of peonies, and I thought this would be great for this area at Steve's house, and so we brought them by, and with the help of Armando, I think we started the process, and then you tried to finish it, and then
Yeah.
it was a lot more work than we bargained for. But Armando got them in, and they're beautiful.
Dale, you've been teaching me how to
Espalier.
espalier it by wiring it to the wall.
That's another French technique, yeah.
And trimming the any little twig that comes out in a horizontal. I've been trying to keep them cut back and keep it flat on the top. We probably will need to add one more wiring to keep it close against the wall, but that's been a lot of fun to work with this. And it's a new concept for me.
Well, Steve, you really embrace everything that we talk about, and I'm just always amazed whenever I come back and you've actually, completed that task, and it looks great. And so you are really a serious gardener. And I mean, I was just noticing the tags by the peonies over there, and I mean, good gardeners know the value of knowing the names. And I actually brought you some tags today so that you can learn the names. It's kind of just makes it all the more special when you know exactly what you have in the cultivars that you're growing.
For sure. Well, I enjoy walking family and friends through the gardens, and it's helpful if I can actually give them a hint as to what it is. So then we come in here, we've got some roses that we received from the Dixon a few years ago, and then we have transplanted these dahlias from the upper bed. They do like a lot of sun, but we've had, probably because I didn't dig the holes correctly, some of them have suffered, but we've had 5 that made it through this drastic winter of ours.
Show them the flower bud on that.
This thing is already getting ready to show off, and I need to actually put my I have little metal stakes with a circle that will keep it upright so it won't fall over. With the help of our landscape crew, Armando Garcia, we're able to really develop these roses. He comes and trims them pretty heavily, probably in February, and then I go in and do the fine tuning on the roses. But they have just been beautiful, and these are pink knockout roses.
There's not a black spot on them. They're very happy.
We have had problems in the last couple of years with Japanese beetles.
Okay.
But Jones Brothers has come out and treated that and pretty well knocked it back. And occasionally we'll have aphids, but that's going to come probably next month. And then we come into our lamb's ears, which Ann has always loved the lamb's ears because both they're pretty, but they also feel good.
Yeah, they're great for the grandkids.
Oh yeah. And of course these are spectacular. The buckeyes, and you can see the little plumes that are already starting to form. We'll have the beautiful flowers. I think they're white.
Yeah, this is the bottle brush buckeye, which is white.
And then it just stair steps, and it grows and grows, and obviously likes this
really
location.
Well.
Yeah. These hostas, other than collecting water, are absolutely stunning. These are sum in substance hostas.
Fitting name, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Sounds rather English to me. But it's beautiful there, and then when the azaleas behind them were flowering and then the dogwoods were flowering, it was just sort of, as was said earlier, a stair step, and then we have the native azaleas that are now, what would you guess that is? 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall?
They're getting up in size.
And we have some at the farm that are 18, 20 feet tall. One of my favorite plants, Dale, that you provided for me, and it's called
It's finished blooming now.
It's the Weeping Japanese Snowbell, and it was just covered with these beautiful flowers.
Oh, here we look. Just for the camera, we have one remaining bloom.
Oh, how about that?
Little nodding little.
Well, Dale, you know what my nickname for this plant is?
What is your nickname?
This is my Joe Orgel tree.
That's right. I brought in some from Oregon, and he had two at his place over off of Poplar in the back, and I think you had the third one that was planted in Memphis. So yeah,
That's right.
it's your Joe Orgel tree.
So
I've since
every
planted
time
one
I
at the
pass
Dixon.
it, I think of Joe and what he did for the Dixon.
Yeah. what a great man.
For sure.
This has quickly become one of my favorite boxwood. Look at the blue-green foliage on it, and it keeps that natural pyramidal shape. This is John Baldwin, and I just love this plant. We don't have a lot of plants that keep that pyramidal shape naturally in the landscape. I mean, you compare it with the American boxwood over here, even though that one's been pruned, that's much more rounded, and this sort of has that point to it. I think they're great for sort of making little sentinels for entrances and areas, and they work well here.
Yeah, nice balance with a swing for sure. Well,
That's
thank
a
you,
lovely
Dale.
swing, by the
Yeah,
way.
it is. It is.
You spend much time out here, Ann?
A little bit.
With the grandkids in particular.
Around here, we put the kids in it and take fun.
This is our walking stick.
Yeah, Harry Lauder's walking stick, and this is a purple form of it, which is really unique. This came from nurseryman Don Shadow out of Winchester, Tennessee, and it has the purple foliage on it. It's really nice. And you've done an excellent job of pruning this. You know, you want to show off those contorted branches. And I think I showed you one little branch on what to do, and you've done just a remarkable job with it.
Well, I had a good teacher. Nothing like having the master lead you through the process.
So, you know, and I was looking up Harry Lauder because I knew he was a vaudeville comedian, but I didn't realize he was a musician as well. He was Scottish, and anyway, the name of this development here is called Chartwell, which I thought was interesting because that's where Winston Churchill's home was, in Chartwell. And when I looked up this plant, it was saying that Winston Churchill attributed Harry Lauder as being one of the he was actually knighted in the UK, and Winston Churchill said he was one of the greatest singers and performers to ever live in England. So I thought that was interesting to have that connection there. Not intentional, but just another thing that was just serendipity, I guess. The same genus, and apparently was found in a hedgerow in England and propagated from there. And then now, I don't know how they ended up with a purple form. I guess over time, they just breeding, they developed or sport or something, developed this purple form, which is really, really nice. And that's probably the best specimen in Memphis for sure.
Well, it's fun to have it with that dark color because when you see the monarch butterflies or the swallowtails, zebras, or the viceroys float by, they stand out and they're heading to their target, which is the butterfly plant. And you can see one of them looks like it's already starting to bloom right here.
Yeah.
How about that? Just in time. Maybe we'll have butterflies this week.
Yeah, this is the host plant for the monarch butterfly, and it's really a fascinating story. You know, the birds and stuff won't eat the monarchs because they feed on this plant, and it has a milky sap in it that's actually toxic to birds. So they know that if they eat the butterfly, they're going to be getting some of that toxic chemical. So it kind of protects them. But anyway, the larvae are on here, and then sometimes you get those little bugs on there as well.
Yes.
They match the color of the flower.
Orange and black.
Orange and
Very
black.
interesting. Now, are those insects you should leave alone?
I don't think they're going to hurt anything. They're very specific to the milkweed, and they may eat a little bit of it. But you know, sometimes in our gardens we need to share with nature. You know, instead of just worrying about what we think about it, but sharing with nature is a nice thing to do. Share with them. And wow, this is the day for the spigelia. It's really
Isn't that beautiful? And come take a look. I mean, they're lighting up. Oh, okay, here.
Yeah.
Now, what color is that?
That's right. You are colorblind. So this is a red with a yellow on the
Okay.
inside there. And so,
Well, they just opened up today.
They did.
yeah, and look at that the way the blooms are arranged. They start here and they work their way down. So you've got a long season of bloom there. Uh, you know, this in Vicki McDonald's garden, she had huge clumps, it's the size of wash tubs of these, and there was a book written on native plants of the South, and by Andy and Sally Wazowski, and they were out of East Texas, I think. Anyway, they wrote the book, and her garden was on the cover with these plants, and it showed these sort of masses of these spigelia, and
And
anyway,
then
the hummingbirds like these as well.
They
you know,
do.
red flowered, and we
And
planted some more because it was just so nice.
plus we have the cardinal flowers that ring around on the other side, which the hummingbirds love.
Yes, because it's kind of moist in it. Okay. So, and speaking of butterfly plants, this is a native plant, Lindera benzoian, and it's a fancy name, but it's called spice bush. And some people say it smells like lemon pledge when you crush the foliage. Ann, what do you think? But it's the spice bush swallowtail, which is a beautiful butterfly. This is the host plant for it. So we've kind of created a habitat here in your garden for all these butterflies, as we mentioned, and this is a key one. The spice bush swallowtail is one of my favorite butterflies.
Well, then we lead over here to our pawpaws. The first time I'd ever seen a pawpaw was on the Little Red River in Arkansas, and they grow not upright, they grow like horizontal to the ground because they're looking for the sunlight.
Gotcha.
And they hang out over the river, but they have
Oh,
these.
look, you've got pawpaws, Steve.
Yes, we do.
That's
we have
exciting.
actually have pawpaws, which they'll get to be about that big.
Yes.
And apparently people do eat them, and I believe they may have a taste similar to bananas. And you were
They're
telling me that
delicious.
somebody, is it
Wheezy
Wheezy Calandruccio makes pawpaw
ice cream, homemade
ice cream. Oh, I need to invite her over here.
But yeah, these are really, really wonderful and great fall color. You know, they have that lemon yellow fall color, and it's a native plant that really, I think, more children should know about. I mean, you know, growing up in this area, it seems like every kid should know the nursery rhyme, picking up the pawpaws and putting them in your pocket, and having tasted one. You know.
Well, one of the lessons I've learned from you is when you're an active weed puller, don't pull up the junior pawpaws, which they will spread, and I think we've been guilty as charged.
Yeah.
And
They'll make a nice patch, as they
yeah,
call
oh,
it,
they did.
pawpaw
Well,
patch.
we had 3 of them, and some of the people who helped me, I haven't done a good job of teaching them,
Right.
but we'll get there eventually. And then we have,
What's
I call
going
them,
over here. We've still got blooms.
yes, sweet. I call them Sweet William. What is the
Yeah,
name?
wild sweet William. It's a phlox. Wild sweet William. Very fragrant too.
You know where I first discovered those? In Shelby Forest when I was turkey hunting. And you could tell Ann would know when I had had an unsuccessful turkey hunt, because I would come home with my turkey vest with Sweet William in the back of it and some ferns. And so we populated one of our former home's backyard with those. Dale, thank you very much for being here with us today, and thank you for being the architect that has really designed all of this beauty that we enjoy every day.
Well, I've really enjoyed working with you and Ann, and you've done an amazing job. And you know, you can design all you want and make all the plant suggestions you want, but if it's not cared for, you know, gardens have to be nurtured, and you have nurtured this garden, and it's just truly amazing, Steve. And I've enjoyed our friendship as a result of gardening together, and I hope it continues in the future.
It will. We're blessed. Thank you, friend.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we've got a few questions popping up here and there. Someone said it's a very fun tour, and she wanted to know, how long have you been working on your espalier tree, and does it take a lot of work to maintain that?
Well, Dale, we have been working on the espalier approach for about 3 years now, and it looks dramatically different than what it did to begin with. Of course, we had to start. Both of the espalier settings that we have flowers, which is wonderful to see early in the spring. And then they just continue to green up as the summer goes forward. And would you suggest that that's what we're doing with the camellias on the wall also?
Yes, we need to do a little bit more work on those. So we have the crabapple. The traditional tree to espalier was an apple tree, and apple trees have some problems here. There's only a few apples that will grow, but crab apples do really well. And so we planted crab apples. They're not good to eat, but you can make jelly with them. I guess if you add enough sugar to anything, it's edible. but anyway, and then the other one is a fringe flower. It's a loropetalum or fringe flower, and it has burgundy foliage. And it tends to be a pretty aggressive grower, but you've done a good job at keeping it in check.
But one of the keys to that is the wiring, which keeps it in place and trains it. And yeah, it's a nice thing to walk past. And once I accomplish the hard work, now it's just an occasional snip or nip as I walk through.
Well, do you have a favorite plant in the garden?
Well, not a plant. I have several favorite plants, Dale. One of them is the hardy amaryllis. I think it's called the St. Joseph's tulip.
St. Joseph lily, yes.
St. Joseph lily.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have your running mate who knows what he's talking about with you. It is a lovely piece, and it's set right next to the Edgeworthia, as well as the Dixon foam flower. And so they complement one another. And we walk along our middle path. There's a plant I have to ask you about every time. It's called the strawberry begonia, which pops up between the stone walkway and has these beautiful white flowers that are next to the dark ajuga. And then we lead into another one that I like. It's called it's called the Joe Pye weed.
Yes.
And, the idea of planting weeds when I'm pulling weeds is somewhat complicated for me to process. But the Joe Pye weeds attract butterflies, lots and lots of butterflies. And then we have a variety of other plants that I love. One is called the Mexican petunia, which mostly, I think the flowers are purple. But again, as you know, I'm colorblind, so I have to ask Ann what they are. And then another favorite is the variegated Solomon seal. And if you pay attention early on, they have like a little bow with snowbells hanging down. And it really is a lovely specimen.
Well, the Joe Pye weed just has an unfortunate name. It's a great plant, and everybody's into pollinators and butterfly plants, and that certainly is. I'd say that's a butterfly magnet. It's always covered with bees and butterflies, I think. Someone made a comment. Thank you for showing us your lovely gardens, Ann and Steve. It's so beautiful. Then we have another comment. Were y'all inspired by any particular gardens that you visited?
Well, of course, the one that comes to mind first would be called the Dixon Gardens. That is where we really have received most of our inspiration, but because of involvement with the Dixon, we paid more close attention wherever we travel, whether it's in England or France or New Zealand. And always, I know that I've been in South America. Ann and I were in Argentina a few years ago, and I was sending texts to you about plants that we saw just to try to find out what it was. And we would send pieces of art that we saw at the museum to Kevin, and he would explain to me the background of certain art pieces.
Fantastic. And do you have a favorite plant in the garden?
I love them all. And Steve will bring in clusters of different things, and I love to put them in a vase and put them around the house. Roses and other pretty flowers when it's their time. And so we enjoy them inside as well.
And I follow orders. You know, another great garden that I have enjoyed happens to be in our neighborhood. Betty Moore has one of the most lovely gardens I've ever seen, and it's very creative. And I think Betty must have figured out how to plant things that the deer don't like, because her garden just flourishes. That's been a hard lesson for us to learn, is managing the garden in a wildlife area. And we do have a lot of deer. Therefore, we have tried a lot of different things, Dale. As you know, we've tried coffee grounds, we've tried ivory soap, or even Irish Spring has been suggested. I think these are people that own stock in Irish Spring and ivory soap. Neither have worked. The coffee grounds may work, but we have found one solution I picked up on Amazon. It's called Deer Out. It's a concentrate that we mix with water and spray maybe 3 times a week. And then, of course, if you have an irrigation system, Dale, you have to realize you're about to wash off whatever you put on the day before or 2 days before. But that seems to have helped. But the real important trick on keeping deer out is to transplant the things that they like into your backyard that is fenced, and then find plants that are deer resistant. Now, the one thing that we have, it's really amazing to me that deer like is, we call it monkey grass. And Dale, what is it you call it?
Liriope, yeah.
Liriope. You think the deer would have to be desperate to eat things like that, but thus far, things seem to be going better for us, but it's a continual issue.
Well, that liriope is glorious in the spring. We've underplanted it with about 6,000 tete-a-tete daffodils. So it just comes up in the spring and it's glorious. And I know that's one of Ann's favorite times in the garden.
And the way it was designed by you, Dale, and I think John Thompson is on the call with us. He's with Kaiser Tribute in Nashville. John and Mike helped design the hardscape and a lot of the landscape. But we have so enjoyed all the different varieties that we have. And it was planned in such a way that once one thing is in bloom, and it fades, then another comes forth. And then whether it's the trees or the flowers, and that has been wonderful to see it all come to fruition. I didn't recognize the vision that you and Mike and John had, but we are the beneficiaries of that vision.
We've got a couple of more things in the chat if you'd like for me to address those now. This is from a Dixon friend. Other than the bench where you spend the time with the grandchildren, what is your favorite spot in the garden?
Wherever I might be that day. It seems like I spend more time just strolling through the entire garden, and frankly, don't take as much time as I should just to sit down as is being suggested, to just enjoy the natural surroundings. We have a bench in the front yard that faces the house, and it allows me and Ann to not only view the landscape, but it also is a great spot for us to seat our grandchildren and take photographs with the gardens behind. So it's the whole landscape is lovely.
Okay, we have another comment and question. It says, I love that you have plants that attract hummingbirds. Have you seen any hummingbirds this year?
You know, as a matter of fact, I have not, but we are seeing the butterflies just start. It just seems a little slower this year than last year with the butterflies, but we have had maybe we've had a couple of the hummingbirds. we see an awful lot of other birds that love the place, the cardinals and the occasional bluebird, not very often, but an occasional bluebird.
Yeah, that's special to have bluebirds in the city. That's kind of a country bird, so that's great. Okay, let's see. This is from Barbara Williamson. She says, "Thank you so much for the beautiful and inspiring tour. And you brought back wonderful memories of Dixon trips." And then the next follow-up comment she made is, "I think the deer go from your home to ours and back again."
Well, we have learned to share. We learned to share as children, and so we do share the deer with our neighbors. And so we play ping pong with our neighbors as well. Plus, sprinkled in among the deer, we get to see beautiful red fox and a number of other creatures that float through.
Okay, we've got another question here. How large is your property? And is there any area where you have space to plant and haven't yet?
Well, it's not that large of a property. We're just surrounded by a lot of property. Our home backs up to 40 acres of woods, and which gives us a great backdrop. Actually, John Thompson and Mike Kaiser explained to us that that was called borrowed landscape. And we have benefited from that greatly. But, I think our lot is about 1.5 acres. And the answer to the question is there a spot left to plant? Probably. What do you think?
No.
Ann says no. And I think
Well, you
that's
do have some
correct.
grass left. There are some grass spots. So.
we do have a little bit of grass.
Well, all right. If there are no more, let's see. Okay, another comment. Okay, so John Thompson says it's their pleasure, Steve and Ann. You have both been wonderful. So anyway, yes, you have been wonderful. And one of the best things that I know about your garden is that I've gotten to know you and Ann better. So that's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been a good partnership.
All right. Well, I guess that's all we have. Well, I'd encourage everybody to come out to the Dixon and get inspired like you are. So that's great.